Today I'm heading out on the trail again. It is an absolutely glorious day here, and I'm really looking forward to this one. Actually, obviously I look forward to all of my walks, but this one especially because today I'm going to head for the Dorset coast, the wonderful Jurassic coast. So I'm going to be walking in the footsteps of priests and quarrymen. And it's going to be an awesome walk with loads to see on the way. So hope you'll join me. So I've come to Worth Matravers. Worth Matravers is here on the map, if you can see that. There's two car parks. There's actually a car park in Worth Matravers. I prefer to park at the West car park, partly because there is some road walking and I'd rather get that out of the way early, but also because I like to time my walks to finish walking along this path as the sun sets, because it's particularly lovely. So I've timed this to get sunset along there before heading back to the car. So from where I am, I'm going to be walking into Worth Matravers. I'm then going to be following the Priest's Way along to Spyway Barn. From Spyway Barn I will drop down to the coast at Dancing Ledges, and then I will walk all along the quarry coast of Dorset, over St Aldhelm's Head, and back along here to the start. So it should be a really good walk, and it's an absolutely beautiful day for it. So yes, we are walking in the footsteps of priests and quarrymen, but more of that later. At the moment I'm just trying to get the road walking out of the way. Having said that, it's a nice road. It's very quiet, doesn't actually go anywhere apart from the car park and a couple of cottages or farmhouse. So it's a very quiet road and it's pleasant walking, but I just prefer to get it done early in the day really. And then I get a lovely sunset around the hilltops at the end of the day. So yes, it should be an absolutely beautiful walk. It's an awesome day. That's the coast down there, which we'll be joining later on. Got a bit of inland walking to do first, and then we'll join the coast path and head west. So this is the centre of Worth Matravers, with its duck pond and a distinct absence of ducks. Just been talking to a local resident who seems to suggest that they've all died, so no ducks, sadly. Also in Worth Matravers is probably the best pub in Purbeck, maybe in even the whole of Dorset. This is the Square and Compass. It's probably the only pub with its own museum of fossils. And it's probably the only pub that has no real bar. What it does have is a beer garden with an amazing view, and this is absolutely heaving in the summer, the beer garden. So it used to be originally 2 cottages. It was built in the mid 18th century and was converted to a pub shortly afterwards, I think. Originally called the Sloop, but it changed its name to the Square and Compass when former quarryman took over as landlord. So I've left Worth Matravers behind now, and I'm now following the Priest's Way. Now the Priest's Way gets its name from the fact that it used to be the track that was followed by priests. It runs roughly 3 miles or a bit more between Worth Matravers and Swanage. Now today it would be interesting because Swanage is a large town, seaside town. Worth Matravers is a comparatively small village. But in those days, Worth Matravers, St Nicholas at Worth Matravers, was the main church. The church in Swanage, St Mary's, was actually the secondary. It was a chapel of ease, a secondary church coming under Worth Matravers. But the priest used to look after both, and so he would either walk or ride horses between the two in order to run the services. So it's a track with a history, which is what I like, and it's also very pleasant walking. So we have to detour off the track today a few times just to have a look at some different things. This one, which we're about to go and look at, you may find absolutely awesomely interesting, or you may find thoroughly boring, depending on your point of view. So you might think this is just a slab of rock with some dents, but what these are actually is dinosaur footprints. How people know they're dinosaur footprints, I don't know. Kind of dents in the rock, but there's a few of these around here. So you could say that we're not only walking in the footsteps of priests and quarrymen, we're also walking in the footsteps of dinosaurs. Well, and smugglers as well, actually, because obviously this is a big smuggling area. So, back on the priest track. Of course, I said we're walking in the footsteps of quarrymen. I was meaning quarrymen of old, but actually we're walking in the footsteps of current day quarrymen as well, because there are several live quarries here that still operate. All the ones along the coast, which we'll be seeing later, have closed. Interesting. Done by Bodgett and Sons. So at this point we're going to have to bid farewell to our medieval priest companion who's been with us all the way along, because we've got quarrymen to visit. So we're going to head up here to Spyway Barn and then down the other side. To be if it's raining, which it's not. So we're in sight of the coast path now. Haven't got there yet. So we'll be down there very soon, and the sun's coming out again. So down there is the coast path, and below that, right where the sun is reflecting off the water, is Dancing Ledge, which is one of the larger quarries along the coast. But we're going to take a detour first, because I want to go across this way to one of the smaller quarries, and one which is a bit of a special place in my heart. So for the moment I'm heading east to my baby quarry, which I believe is called Blacker's Hole. I say I believe because I don't know that the name appears on maps usually, but we've got to climb down to get to it. So the quarry's actually on two levels. This is the upper level, this is upstairs. Which is not much to look at, maybe. Grassy ledge, but this is one of my wild camping spots. And there's a couple of things about that that are memorable. One is that although it's looks like a nice soft grassy surface, actually the grass is actually very thin, and it's mainly rock. So it's quite hard. And I slept here, and I slept cowboy style. It was cowboy camping rather than tent. Just slept under the stars here. But the memorable thing was absolutely amazing, laying there at night looking up at the sky and watching these huge bats flying around literally right above my head. And that's one of the things with this quarry coastline of Dorset, is that it's a bat stronghold, including bats like the greater horseshoe bat, which is one of our larger species. So I laid here on this grass looking up with enough light in the sky to see these bats flying about just above my head. It was a memorable night, that was. And all the while I could lay and listen to the sound of the surf washing on the rocks below. But let's go down to the lower level. So the lower level, probably not for the faint-hearted, because it's down there. a shame that the wind is actually not in the right direction for once. What we want is wind coming off the sea, because that would push the waves quite dramatically along here, but it's not. The wind's blowing off the land, so it's comparatively calm. But I love this little quarry. Just got to climb back out now. I should say, incidentally, that this is a climber's area. Some of these quarries are for climbing, and this is probably a climbing quarry, I think, hence the way the bar is embedded in the rock. Probably not for your average person, maybe. And that's the view west, and we're heading up over St Aldhelm's Head, which is the headland in the different distance. So we've left Blacker's Hole, one of the smallest quarries. Now we're going to head for one of the biggest. I don't actually know quite what Blacker's Hole was. It's so small, I kind of wonder if it's a kind of a test quarry that maybe proved unsuccessful, or the stone wasn't any good or something, or maybe it was a late one just before the industry kind of ran out of steam. Don't know. Anyway, we know more about the next quarry. As we come through the gate, Dancing Ledge begins to show itself. What makes you think this is popular? 1, 2, 3, 4 stiles all in a row, and they lead to Dancing Ledge. So this is Dancing Ledge. There are a lot of quarries on this walk, so I won't go down to all of them, but this is one of the larger ones. And again, you've got the upper level and you've got the lower level. There are various theories as to why it got its name. The main one, I think, is that the waves dance across the ledge, hence Dancing Ledge. But there are also theories that I've read that the lower ledge is the same size as the ballroom dance floor, and maybe it got it from that. I don't know truth of it. But the interesting thing about this is it has a little swimming pool. I don't know if it's going to come out on the video, but there's climbers down there, and there's one with a pinky purple top. Don't know if you can see that on the video, but above that, on the lower ledge, is a swimming pool, effectively, that was blasted out of the rock. And that was done because they wanted somewhere for the children from the local prep school to come and swim safely. So they blasted a swimming pool there for the children to use. It fills when the tide comes in, and when the tide goes out, obviously it stays full. And I've swum in there. It's actually really nice on a really hot summer's day when you're all sweaty and you really need to cool off. It's a good place to be. So that's Dancing Ledge. It quarried up to about 1914, I think it was around about 1914 that quarrying stopped here in this one. And now, of course, it's used for climbing, amongst other things. You certainly wouldn't want to swim in the open sea here because the tide, it's quite difficult, and this is a ledge, and it has been known for people to be sucked down by the undertow underneath the ledge. So it's not a place for swimming other than in that little swimming pool. So we've moved on to Hedbury Quarry now. More climbers over there. There's a cannon down there, which I don't know that there's anything significant about that. I think maybe it was washed up or something from a wreck or something. I'm not sure. But it's a quarry that has a secret. The secret with Hedbury is that you can come in the quarry, go through there and come out into the next quarry. And this is the exit. You need to go careful down here though, because it's wet and slippy. And there's the door, the way through. And here we are in the next quarry. And if we come out here, that is where we were just now, over there. So we've gone right through this rock, just like the quarrymen of old. No quarrymen here today though. Long gone. So we head out this way now, continue heading west. This is looking west. In the distance, St Aldhelm's Head, and below St Aldhelm's Head is a major quarry which we'll be at in a moment, probably in time for a late lunch hopefully. We need to rejoin the coast path, which is up there. So this is an interesting feature. This is a stone with a groove, and obviously used to be a pulley in there, and it was used, you'd have had horses up the top, and the haulser would have gone over there and down to the quarry, and that's how they would have hauled the stone up. Must have been hard work, well, for the horses. This is where I'm glad I got my trusty pole as a third leg, because this is tricky. Yes. That's a glorious view. That's the way we've come. We're going through here, and we are just about at Seacombe Quarry, which is the next one on our list. But before we see Seacombe, there's another point of interest which requires a slight detour inland a short distance, and this for once is not a quarrying relic. So this relic is a World War II relic. This is an Alan Williams turret, which would have been manned by 2 men and would have had various armaments, but usually anti-aircraft machine gun or Bren gun, or maybe an anti-tank rifle, that kind of thing. Entrance obviously is down through there to get inside it. And it runs on bearings, and so would be rotatable 360 degrees, and obviously it manned the coast, because that's got a really good view all down over Seacombe Quarry, as well as up the valley, of course. And they'd have been to keep an eye, be able to keep an eye on the sea in case there's any ships coming over. You could say that it's a relic of war and a bad memory, but equally you could say that it's a relic of peace and a reminder that we have been at peace for so many years, thanks to people who manned these turrets and fought for us. So this is Seacombe Quarry, and the valley, which actually goes right back up into Worth Matravers again, but we're not going up there. We're going to carry on along the coast. So this quarry has an upper and a lower ledge as well. The upper ledge, across the other side, there are open caves, but they're fenced off, so they're obviously considered too dangerous for people to go in. But it's a nice little ledge down there. You can get down onto the lower ledge by the sea. I've been down there and taken sunrise pictures from that ledge before. And one fateful day I lost my camera there. I was stood with the camera on a tripod, just taking photographs of the sunset, just turned away for a second and didn't realise there was a freak, much bigger wave heading in. And before I realised and had time to grab the tripod, it went flying as the wave flooded over my Canon 5D camera, which went under the water. And the odd thing is that as it got swamped and went down, it triggered the shutter. So I've actually got an image as it was falling, its last image before it died, which in some ways is quite amusing looking back. It wasn't at the time, it was sickening. Obviously I retrieved it, the card and everything, the memory card and everything was okay, the camera wasn't, but fortunately I'm insured, so I was able to claim off the insurance, get a new one. But it was a horrible experience. And just shows, if you're taking photographs on a ledge, you have to keep your eyes open, because every so often you're going to get a freak, much larger wave. Anyway, we'll keep walking. Winspit 3/4, and you can't get through the quarry and out the other side, so this time we've got to go inland up the valley, 1/4 of a mile or so, in order to get across this lot, which is part of the quarry. So we've got to get round that to get back up onto the coast path and head on round to the next quarry. Right, I've climbed out of the valley, back on the coast path, and skirting around cliff edges again to reach the next quarry. Looking east, we've walked along some of that coastline, not the far part. In the distance, may or may not come out on the video, but in the distance is Anvil Point, and the lighthouse stands out white, and right across in the distance is the Isle of Wight, which also stands out. Amazing view this is. It's awesome. Reached the next quarry, and this one is Winspit, which is a substantial quarry which we'll explore a little bit. I have some late lunch, I think, because it's nearly 3 o'clock, would you believe? So this quarry was worked from 1719 until the mid-20th century. One of the last people to work the quarry was William Jeremiah Bower. That was his proper name, but he was actually better known locally as Billy Winspit, and he used to live in the cottage down the bottom there. Don't know if you can see it, but down in the bottom in here in the valley there is you can just see the roof of a cottage. That's Winspit Cottage, or Billy Winspit's cottage. And after the quarry closed, Billy Winspit continued to live in that cottage, and he continued to carve stone in his garden until his death, which was in 1966. On either side of this Winspit Quarry and Winspit Valley we have hills. On that side we have Westman, and on this side we have Eastman, and the quarry sits between the two. And one thing Winspit is known for is its bat caves. Nothing to do with Batman, of course. We mentioned bats earlier, and this is one of their strongholds. There's something like 15 different species of bats have been identified in this area, and some of the old quarries have been converted for their use. And of course it's winter, so somewhere in there will be hibernating bats, including the greater horseshoe that I talked about earlier on. call this the speed dating site for bats, apparently, because bats come from miles and miles to come to this area in order to breed. So that's another interesting fact. Speed dating site at Winspit, but you have to be a bat to partake. So on the east side of Winspit there is this long ledge with various openings down its length where the stone has been removed, and some of the caves are open and we're able to go in. And the ledge gets narrower the further you go along. Of course I've got to go back the same way because I'm heading east at the moment. Earlier on I was up on the coast path above. So here's one of the caves. Stones removed. Amazingly, the roof is propped up with a few rocks. And it's a very cracked roof. There's another one, and another one, and so it goes on. I'm not going to go all down there because I'm going to run out of time on my walk if I go too far, so I'm going to now head back. Well, that's a shame, because there's lots of cave openings in there which you could go in, but obviously they've stopped it, and they go in quite a long way as well, those. So sorry, I'm not going to be able to take you in there, unfortunately. I wouldn't want to ignore that sign, I don't think, although I'm sure people do. But we'll have another look at the ledge. That we might go down there and have some lunch. So a lot of the rock that was quarried out of this ground, some of it would have gone inland, but quite a lot of it would have gone out by boat, and that must have been a tall order because it would have to be ferried down to the bottom and manoeuvred to the edge of the ledge in order to be loaded on small boats which would then carry it. In fact, I think they rowed it out to larger vessels moored offshore. I've got a picture actually, I might try and put in the video if I can find it. It was actually one that came from There's actually an information board along the coast somewhere, but I copied it as a sketch for myself and turned it into a picture. So I'll try and put that up, but it's interesting the way they used to do these things. And risky as well, has to be said. You have to go very careful how you place your feet on these rocks because they are slippery. One of the features you often see along the ledges is these grooves, like the ones in front, where they used to drag the stone across in sledges to reach the edge of the quarry. They used to wear grooves almost like railway lines in the rocks. And this is one place you can actually swim along this part of the coast. There's very few places you can get in the water safely, but from here there's some rocks protecting it further across there, so I've swum in there before on a hot day, and a lot of other people have as well. Quite nice. So fortunately I've got my usual flask of hot bovril. This is a kind of more normal lunch stop for me. It's not often I stop at a cafe. Normally it's hard rock and a homemade sandwich. But hey, what better cafe to eat it at than this? Looking at that view with the sun going down behind the headlands across there. Doesn't get much better than that, does it? Well, that was a lovely spot for a very late lunch. I need to get out on the trail again, so I'm going to climb up over there again. So here you can see the upper ledge, one which was blocked as being unsafe, or at least the caves beneath me are unsafe. Over there you can see the old quarry buildings, the remains, and that's looking towards Anvil Point in the east. So a last look at Winspit Quarry. It's actually been used for quite a few film locations here. I believe Doctor Who might be one of the things that was recorded here once. The sun is sinking now, and I'm going to head west straight into it. Now I've got to climb up over to St Oldham's Head. St Oldham's Head, that's better. Must be getting tired, I think. Gonna run out of light soon. No, should be fine. It's a bit blinding, I have to say though. I'm walking straight into that really bright sun. Makes it difficult to see the path in front of me. But my, isn't that lovely? And what a sky. Look at the blue of that sea. It's just awesome. Just amazing, isn't it? So good to be here. beautiful bit of bird song. So that was a little treat, that was. Bird song on the coast path as the sun set. It was, well, I hesitate to say only a robin, but it was a robin because robins are the birds that sing in the winter often. But that was absolutely beautiful, I thought, serenading me as I walked. So another interesting feature at the top of St Aldhelm's, well, nearly at the top, is this old building here, which is actually a radar station or radar research station, I believe. It was run by the telecommunications research establishment, so it's another wartime relic. Not a lot of it now, but that's another part of the heritage of this area. And there was a bigger part of it up over the top of the hill and slightly inland. And in addition, of course, St Aldhelm's Head is also our last quarry of the day, because this at one time was also a quarry. And across the other side you can see what I call the chimney. That was a relic that was left by the quarrymen when they vacated the place when the quarrying operations ceased. They left this chimney, as I call it. Always reminds me of the Devil's Chimney. Devil's Chimney on the Cotswold Escarpment just above Cheltenham, which is a bit like that. So this is Dorset's very own Devil's Chimney at sunset. Fantastic. And we've got to clamber our way up to the top of St Aldhelm's Head. Finally, we can see, nearly at the top of St Aldhelm's Head, we can see west. The Dorset coast stretching away. Right across the other side is Portland Bill. You can see the lighthouse even by eye. I doubt it'll come out on the video. But we're going to lose the sun very soon now, so as beautiful as this is, I need to keep walking, I think, because I still have a mile or two to go. Yeah. Finally, we're at the top of St Aldhelm's Head. There's a few things on here. There in the distance over there, there's the old Coast Guard cottages, which are now holiday lets mostly, I think. The detached garage looking structure to the left is where the Coast Guard's cart used to be kept. But they vacated here because obviously they had families and kids, and I think it was felt it was too remote, so they moved them out of here into a less remote area. But the other interesting building that we have here is, of course, this St Aldhelm's Chapel, famous on its headland, middle of nowhere. It dates from Norman times. It's actually not thought to be originally a chapel, and partly the reason for that is it's not orientated the way churches normally are. So normally the altar with the window would be east, facing east. In fact, the sides don't face east. I think it's the corners that actually face north, east, south and west. So it's thought it was probably a lookout of some sort, and it's possible even that on the top at one time was some kind of beacon, but it was converted to a chapel, and it's still used occasionally. I don't know whether this will come out. So that's St Aldhelm's Chapel. And of course there's the old Coast Guard lookout, which is now National Coast Watch Scheme, I think, rather than Coast Guards, which is down there. I think partly the reason for this being here is there's quite a dodgy area for shipping, because from the head there is a ledge that stretches out, I think it's something like 4 miles out to sea. So it's actually not that deep here. And you quite often on a windy day get a lot of white horses across this bay, which stems from the ledge really, which creates it. Anyway, as you keep walking on, sky in front of us is beginning to turn nicely pink. I don't know how that will come out on film, but it certainly looks pretty walking towards it. So in the distance, straight ahead, is the headland. That's Emmett's Hill, which is the headland that I'm going to go across, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that this is going to be a nice flat walk now back to the car, which is the other end of Emmett's Hill effectively, but you'd be wrong. And a magnificent view walking along here on this evening. Absolutely amazing. This is so good to be out, so good to be here. Such an enjoyable walk. I recommend it to anyone. But this walk has a sting in the tail. I guess I've probably walked, don't know, 9 miles I would think at the moment. And just when you think you're beginning to get a bit tired and nice flat stroll would be good, you unfortunately come across this. This is what I call the staircase. There's steps, fortunately, which take you all the way down, or not quite to sea level, but not far off, and then you have to climb all the way up the other side. And it's hard work at the end of a day's walking. Never mind, we get there and it's worth it. So from here you can see Hound's Tout across the other side. If I can get my finger in the right place, is that Hound's Tout somewhere over there? Unfortunately you can't get up onto that from this side now because there's been some erosion and the cliff path is gone, so there's a detour inland to get past that. But then you swing round, we got Swire Head, and then round further we got Kimmeridge over there, and then you'd be heading over the range walk, so Loworth range walks. But we've got to go down and up, so I'll see you in a minute. So as if by magic, I'm down the bottom. Well, on the video it will look like magic. Breathing heavily though. And now the only way is up. I've got to go back up that side again. Nearly at the top. It's a beautiful sky. There's St Aldhelm's Head over there. See the Coast Guard cottages. That was my way up. Ooh, I'm still breathing heavily. So that's a perfect spot for a seat for poor souls like me. I just climbed up there. It's good training though. Helps keep you strong and fit. So it now really is a pretty flat walk back to the car, I'm glad to say. But there's still one other interesting story on this bit of the coast that I need to share when I get to it. I'm now just making my way along Emmett's Hill. As the light fades, it amazes me really, because I've been walking these tracks, these places all of my life, from when I was a kid. So for what, 70 years? And I've walked this route so many times, and yet it never fails to come up new each time. It gives me joy every time I walk this. It's never boring, it's never sameish. You never feel like, oh, I've done this so many times, can't I walk somewhere else? It's always different, and it's always a joy to walk. And I know I rave on about these things, but I genuinely absolutely love this. Love to be out here walking the hills, even the hills I've walked all my life, to be looking down the coastline. I genuinely never tire of it. I can't wait for the next time. It'll be, what, maybe spring perhaps. It'll be warmer, it'll be fresh greens and new growth and some orchids or bugs and birds and all sorts of things going on, and it'll be different again. So it's a real pleasure to walk these areas and to bring you along with me as well. And hopefully, if you look down there, you can see Hounds Tout across the bay. The bay itself is Chapman's Pool, which in the summer will probably have a number of yachts parked up, moored, sorry, you don't park yachts, moored up. Down at the bottom there's also some fishing huts, because this is a fishing area, or was. And there's the remains of the previous Coast Guard cottages, which were down there as well, before they moved up to the top of St Aldhelm's Head and then moved again inland. So there's a lot going on here. Such a beautiful area, but I still haven't reached the last thing which I wanted to show and tell. So this is the final thing I wanted to show you. This is a little memorial garden on the headland in the middle of nowhere. in the little garden is a concrete table. And one day I came across here, it was about this time, sat at that table was a young couple, and they had a picnic. In fact, it was a grand picnic, not just a sandwich and crisps. It was a full meal picnic, complete with bubbly, bottle of bubbly and real glasses. And they're obviously sat there celebrating some occasion. I don't know what it is or what it was, but I basically didn't like to interrupt. I didn't want to intrude on their moment, so I just carried on past. But I'd love to know what it was they were celebrating. But they were sat at that table at sunset, and they were looking out across that view as the sun set. It was later in the year, so it's not freezing cold like it is now. It was later, warmer, and probably later in the evening because the sun was setting late and right down the coast. So they were toasting and celebrating something, looking at that scene. And I thought that was a lovely story to finish my walk with, or my video with, because I've still got to do another, not long, just a flat walk across there and then across the fields back to the starting point. But I'm losing the light to be able to film anymore anyway, so this is a good place to end the video, looking at that view. That is totally awesome. It's been a wonderful day. I have thoroughly enjoyed my walk. I hope you've enjoyed it too. So yes, thanks for coming with me, and for now, this is me, the Dorset Rambler, saying until next time.